Part 2, Chapter 12 talks about pneumatography or direct writing, which is different than automatic writing. Pneumataphony or direct spirit sound. So it's without an intermediary. It differs from psychography, which is a transmission of a spirit's thought by the writing of the medium's hand, aka automatic writing. So this would be a spirit using a pencil without a medium physically touching it, or writing on a piece of paper or something with no pencil. Wonderful as is the phenomenon of direct writing, it's a proven fact, they're saying, which requires us to enable an account of occurrence of spirit phenomenon. That direct writing will appear more supernatural to those who are not used to spiritism, but can be easily explained. The idea of trickery was first thought of that people used invisible inks. And again, he's saying that there's many charlatans that have done many things, but they want to get into more talking about when it is legit, how spirits do this. Anything can be imitated, doesn't debunk anything, basically. Saying that there's apparition of 4 words on the wall of Belshazzar's palace, which I'm assuming is a biblical reference, that there was spirit writing, that writing just appeared on the wall. In the Middle Ages, so fertile in occult prodigies, which it was sought to smother in the ashes of the stake, must have also witnessed the phenomenon of direct writing. That alchemists derived their belief in the transmutation of metals, but whatever partial knowledge of spirit action may have arrived in the past, it's only in these later days that we are now again looking at spirit writing with serious attention. It was brought forward in Europe by Baron Goldenstube in his interesting work on the subject, containing a great number of facsimiles of direct spirit writing obtained by him. However, this phenomenon had been known in America before some time and has occurred since in the presence of several other mediums. Direct writing is often obtained through meditation, prayer, evocation. In churches, tombs, at the foot of statues or images of the person or the spirit attempting to communicate with. It's clear that observances in localities have no other influences other than more like the feeling and intense concentration of thought on the part of the medium and those about them, or the spirit concerned wants to do that. It's not bound to there to do that necessarily, because it can happen under other circumstances in other places, even on an ordinary table, when sought by those mediums who combine the requisite moral conditions with the special mediumistic skills or faculties required for the production of this phenomenon. So it doesn't need to happen in a super special sacred tomb for this to happen. It could happen in a generic area as long as the conditions are met, which is not dependent on location. It seemed at first necessary to obtain spirit writing by putting a pencil on paper on which the spirit was to write, because spirits can move, displace, and take hold of objects. So it was thought that they used a pencil to write, but the presence of a pencil was soon found to be unnecessary. A blank sheet of paper, whether folded or not, has been found to have writing in a few minutes or moments on its surface. For the words are thus written with some sort of substance provided by the spirit, or a product of their own, again, something that they themselves have composed or brought. If so, where did they get it? And this is covered in previous chapters about like transporting objects, or the ability to just produce or hold physical objects, how spirits are able to do that. It says 8th chapter, fully explained. That they fabricated out of their spiritual fluids, out of the universal fabric, basically, of energy. He can therefore Fabricate crayons of various colors, printing ink or common ink, or typographic characters sufficiently firm in texture to even give the imitation of like impressions made by a printing press. The daughter of a friend of ours, a child of only 13 years of age, has obtained entire pages of direct writing produced with a substance resembling pastel. So that's a form of like art supplies. Which reminds me, like, there's a form of even automatic writing as a medium, like scribbling on a piece of paper or drawing pictures, for example, too. Pictures, images obtained, not just writing. I talked before about the phenomenon of the snuff box. Um, don't just search for effects, but also causes of phenomenons to understand what we believe. So we must present subjects to others in a way that they may understand it. As for the value of direct writing, we must admit that its chief use is the additional proof of the intervention of an occult power, the production of phenomenon that our senses can appreciate, a power in the writing as a new method of a spirit manifestation. Direct writing has been obtained in various ancient and modern languages, in hieroglyphics, etc., but the messages are usually short, and this method of communication is not yet acquired the continuity and rapidity of psychography. So, when a spirit does writing on a piece of paper, it's not going to be a book. Basically, they're saying it's going to be shorter messages, or you'd have to do a lot of sessions to get that book. I'm guessing, but not all at once, like a medium can do with a pencil in their hand. I'm guessing they're saying. Pneumatography. Spirits not only produce noises and rappings, but cries of every kind and vocal sounds imitating the human voice in rooms in the open air. Phenomenon. We call this pneumataphony or spirit sounds. Our experience in the nature of spirits, that spirits of an inferior order or lower spirits delude themselves into the belief that they are talking as when in the flesh. So they don't know they're dead and they're just talking. We must be careful not to take all sounds, the source of those we know are not like mere tingling of the ears, um, for occult voices anymore, to share the fancy that when our ears tingle, someone's talking about us, that there's physiological causes or things to sort out, whereas pneumotophonic sounds express thoughts and therefore prove themselves to be an intelligent cause and not possibly just be an accident. So, as a rule, spirit intervention is only proved by intelligent manifestations. In all our causes, there could be another 100 chances that what we are taken for is really due to happenstance, basically. When we are asleep, we hear words, names, sometimes entire phrases, pronounced with sufficient force and distinctiveness to even waken us with a start. And in some cases, this may also be a spirit manifestation. It's often attributable to the cause, which we treated our remarks in hallucination. Chapter 6. What is thus heard may not have any coherence, thus differing wildly from spirit utterances when we are awake, because we can usually exchange thoughts with the spirit into a conversation. It's not just words spoken to us, but it's a back and forth exchange with the spirit. There are two distinct ways in which spirit sounds are perceived. They are sometimes heard by sort of interior hearing, in which case, although the words are heard clear and distinct, they are not of a physical nature. At other times, voices are perceived as something exterior to ourselves and appear to be distinctly articulated as though spoken by a person at our side. So I think the difference between that is like mentally talking to a spirit, and then the spirit can actually vibrate your eardrums or produce a voice outside, basically, versus mentally having a psychic conversation with a spirit. However, produce the phenomenon of pneumatophony is almost always spontaneously and can rarely be obtained by evocation. Interesting. That brings us to the next chapter 13, psychography, which is more about direct or manual psychography, for automatic, more into automatic and direct writing.